Darvo. We've all seen it, we all know what it is, we're all familiar with it. A psychological manipulation technique often used by abusers in order to try to deflect responsibility away from themselves and flip it onto the victim. We saw this a lot, especially on the right before November 5th, but now that, the chickens have come home to roost, the people on the left who refuse to vote for Democrats under any circumstances appear to now be deploying it. Yesterday, I made We Told You So episode 95. And it was entirely about how, despite Joe Biden's administration attempting to fight back against Netanyahu and rein him in on Gaza for a year, the people on the left are now doubling down and claiming they had nothing to do with tanking the election when it took Trump a whole 2 weeks to hand everything over to Netanyahu. They claim they're the exact same thing. Kamala would have done the same thing. Despite the stark difference between these two people, they somehow think they were the exact same, pulling a bunch of whataboutism and claiming that, no, they didn't do anything wrong, they didn't tank the election, it doesn't matter, everything bad was gonna happen anyway. Because the one thing I've repeatedly said about these people is they take absolutely no personal responsibility. Let's take Jaren here, for example, who came into my comments claiming that Kamala would have done the exact same thing. She apparently, despite being part of Biden's administration, who was calling for a ceasefire and trying to bring an end to the conflict, apparently she would have just handed everything over to Netanyahu as well. Based entirely on speculation and, I guess, feelings. And while of course I pointed out in that video it was not all leftists, but it was apparently millions of them, instead of openly admitting that they were showboating, or that maybe admitting they made a mistake, Jaren's one of those people who decided to double down. Claiming both sidesism and that no politician cares about us anyway, blah blah blah, it doesn't matter. And after people in the comments told them they were wrong, they mysteriously disappeared. Only to apparently comment on a separate video and tag me, claiming that I have no conscience and it's all performative activism. That I don't actually care about innocent women and children. That was apparently your takeaway from my 9-minute video pointing out your hypocrisy about how you actually didn't care about innocent civilians because you voted against their own interests. Again, as I pointed out several fucking times. But the hilarious thing is, you'll notice this icon here, because they tagged me in a video that has since either been deleted or it is set to private. So they come into the comments section of my own video, deflecting away from their own responsibility, and they run to some other private video or something, claiming that they are actually the victim, and that those of us who actually tried to prevent this atrocity by voting for Kamala Harris are somehow the bad guys who are showboating. Not them, who complained for months with absolutely no plan except to tank the election and hand it to Trump. It would be hilarious if it wasn't so transparent. But again, like I said, absolutely no personal responsibility. They had a chance to vote for someone who was pushing for a ceasefire and a two-state solution. A ceasefire, by the way, that Biden actually orchestrated and got before he left office. Yet their excuse is, it doesn't matter because Harris probably would have done the same thing anyway. Because they can't admit they were wrong, they'll just say she would have done the same thing. Even though every single one of us knows that Kamala Harris is in no way, shape, or form the same thing as Donald fucking Trump. This is how they have to gaslight themselves so they don't have to admit they were wrong.